Today on The Extraordinary Marriage, we are welcoming Lisa Reichelt with Champion Your Parenting. And you know what? Something I have found really important in marriage and people getting along in the house, it's important that you work well with your kids because if the kids are causing trouble, the marriage is having trouble. If the marriage is having trouble, the kids are having trouble. So today I welcome you, Lisa, so we can look into some of the conflict that frustrated teenagers or frustrated kids cause. And you know what? We want to come together and build strong families. Welcome, Lisa.
Thank you, Connie. I appreciate you inviting me to be on today. I'm just thrilled to be able to share what it is that we do because we are passionate at Champion Your Parenting in helping families become strong and healthy, helping parents to be confident in going forward and being the leader that they should be for their family. And we would love every parent to realize that they absolutely deserve to have support in their parenting. It's essential to be a good parent.
You know, Lisa, that makes me think of a story. And so often, whenever we're thinking about parenting or we're thinking about our marriage, we don't think about the importance of growing. And there's a story in one of Stephen Covey's books that talks about a guy going into the woods and he sees a guy who's cutting down a tree. He's cutting down a tree and he's sawing and sawing and sawing, and it looks like he's getting nowhere. So, as this guy watches him just for a few minutes, he starts to think, should I say something? Should I not? And then he says to the guy, hey, have you thought about sharpening your saw? Well, the man cutting down the tree, he kind of stopped just for a second and he looked at him and he said, can't you see? I don't have time to sharpen my saw. I'm cutting down a tree. And, that's what we do sometimes in our marriages or with our parenting skills. We don't stop to figure out what can I do to make a difference? What can I change? Is there help? Is there hope? And I want to start today with you on tell us a little bit about how you met your spouse, because it is the extraordinary marriage.
Mhm.
Tell us a little bit about how you met your spouse and what brought y'all together, and maybe something you've enjoyed through the years together.
Absolutely. I'd love to talk about marriage because that's another thing I am passionate about. My husband and I spent many years mentoring engaged couples before they got married. So, but the story of our meeting each other is kind of funny because he was actually dating my roommate and she dumped him.
I hear that
And
a lot.
and I kind of suspected that he might ask me out because he had, when he would call up to talk to her, and this was back in the day where you had a phone hanging in the kitchen, when he'd call to talk to her and I would answer, he would spend a good 5-10 minutes chatting with me before he would say, oh, by the way, is she there? And so I knew there was a bit of interest. So it wasn't too long after she broke up with him that he asked me out. And it took a little while for me to adjust to knowing him as in our relationship, instead of viewing him as she viewed him and in their relationship, because of course she had shared all kinds of things about him with me when they were dating.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so I had to kind of erase everything and give him a chance.
Thank
And
goodness she broke up with him, right?
yeah,
That
yes,
freed you up just a little bit.
totally. In fact, she ended up being our maid of honor at our wedding. So the relationship was solid. And yes, and now we've been married for almost 45 years. And we have 5 children and 10 grandchildren. And we just enjoy family life and all that it brings when you have a large family to gather together. And it's one of the reasons why I'm into parent coaching is because I am so passionate about families and healthy families.
Well, Lisa, I found that because we're right about the same place. I've been married for 44 years. Gosh, that sounds like a long time, doesn't
Doesn't
it?
it? Yeah, yeah.
But with that, what happens is when we're raising our kids and our families, we're just busy with that. We're doing the best we
Mhm,
can. We're probably doing what our parents did.
mhm.
You did bring two people together. So, it's a little bit of his stuff and a little bit of my
Right,
stuff, or whoever the
exactly.
strongest personality is maybe wins on
Yep.
that. But in those early days, you're just figuring it out. You're just
Mhm,
busy figuring it out.
mhm.
But when you've been married this long, like we've both been married that long,
Mhm.
it's like we've gotten past raising the kids. Well, even the grandkids, have coming along and they're getting bigger. And I think we develop a passion for something. Sometimes people travel everywhere.
Yep.
Sometimes people start new businesses, or
Mhm.
some people just love to sit around the house. I'm not real sure on that one. I'm not real good at just sitting around. But I think that we both started in the same direction, like that passion for families.
Yep.
And because suddenly one day I realized that so many families don't stay together.
Mhm.
So, what are some things in your marriage that you think, built upon all those kind of things that build a strong marriage?
Yeah, yeah, that's a good question. So right away, I have to say that my husband and I share the same faith traditions. And so that was a bond that brought us together when we were dating and sustained us through our marriage, the fact that we could share that faith together. But in addition to that, I think that we both came into the marriage realizing that we were going to be able to communicate and share in a way that was going to cause each of us to change and grow. We were young, we were in our 20s, and we were willing to learn from one another. And here's a good example. So when we were early married, um, there were some things happening. I don't even remember what they were, but they were bothering me. And my husband came home from work, and I was in a little tizzy about whatever it was that was bothering me. And I wasn't saying anything. I was doing the silent treatment thing. And my husband, God bless him, he is the most patient guy on this planet, I think. He finally came to me and said, I can't fix things if I don't know what it is that's wrong. So it doesn't help me if you're just going to give me the silent treatment. And that was huge to me because I wanted him as this young newly married person, I wanted him to just know what was wrong and
Hmm.
understand, and it was just so eye-opening. And it really shaped things as we went forward. And then throughout our marriage, he taught me so much about being a more patient parent. And I'm sure, and I know actually he's told me and actually written notes to me about how much ways that I relate and dealt with kids changed him as well. So I think that ability to look at our relationship as something that was going to grow and change through the years and to embrace that and allow ourselves to let that person who's so important in our life become one with us and change us and cause us to grow. That's, I think, something that really sustained us.
Well, in a way, you guys sharpened each other's
Hmm.
saw. You
Right,
allowed each other,
exactly.
you were open and you learned from each other and you listened.
Hmm.
And I bet you could tell me a little bit about what happens when people don't listen to each other.
Oh, I always think that it's so disappointing. I have a situation that happened years ago with a couple that we were friends with, and my husband was visiting with her husband they were in the garage tinkering on something, and he made the comment, "Yeah, yep, she hasn't spoken to me in 3 days." And it hurts, it just hurts to think that that communication is broken, that you've gotten to the point where you can't even sit down and have a adult conversation with the person that you've committed yourself to, that you love so deeply, that you sometimes I would find that people would treat their most precious loved one worse than they would treat a coworker.
Yes.
You know,
Hmm.
it's almost like we take advantage of that, the love that we think is, well, he's got to love me no matter what, or she's got to love me no matter what. And we take advantage of that and we treat them poorly. In just daily life, we treat them poorly and we don't speak to them as kindly as we do to others. We let
Hmm.
little things irritate us when we should be able to just say, you know what, that doesn't matter. It's not important. And our coworkers, we would treat more kindly.
I use that sometimes too. But Lisa, I have to say, I think that we don't really mean to. It is the fact of we let our hair down at home, and
Yes.
whether it's we're gruff with our spouse or we're giving them the silent treatment, I
Mm.
think most things that go on is we're really calling out, I need something else. I need some attention.
Mhm.
I need you to know what I want.
Right.
But like your husband did, where he confronted it gently
Hmm.
and put it like it really was, some people
Hmm.
aren't. Now, I wouldn't call him confrontational because he was gentle. Let me tell you, there's
Yes, yes,
personality styles that are confrontational, and you
yes.
know it. So
Yep.
he was not, but he was still able to be direct
Hmm.
and say that to you. And if he didn't, I call it me-itis. We all have me-itis.
Yep.
you know,
Yep.
we're just thinking about me and we're not thinking about the other person. And it's really just one of those things that's natural until we
Hmm.
learn to pay attention to the other
Hmm.
person.
Hmm.
But I, I,
Yes.
I totally go along with you on the fact that if we treated our spouse and everybody in our family the same way we do, because we don't want to look bad in public, right?
Right, right, right. Well, this is the telltale thing. You can be having an argument with somebody in your home, a child or or your spouse or whatever, and then the phone rings and you pick it up and you go, "Hello, oh hi, it's so nice to see you." And you were just in the fit of anger, and yet here's somebody that you're able to. So it just shows how much we are really able to control our emotions and control how we relate to people. And so we need to bring that same kind of control to the people that we live with.
Okay, so since you have so much to give with the idea of parenting, I want to transition to that today because, there's a lot of moms listening, and guess what? There's a
Mhm.
lot of dads listening too.
Yeah.
And, when we first have that 2-year old who's throwing themselves on the floor, most of the time, we love our babies so very much.
Yes.
And sometimes we love them too much to draw the line. And then
Mhm.
sometimes people draw the line so harshly and meanly. And, I guess either one works, but kids grow up with a little bit of confidence and believing themselves, or they're kind of crushed.
Yep.
So, when it comes to a 2-year old, I always think about that drawing the line. And my little granddaughter was here the other day, and she was going to give me that little tantrum thing. And I
Yep.
was like, can't do that with Nana. I'm like,
Yep.
it's called
Grandma's rules.
experience, been there, done,
Yeah.
done that.
Yeah.
And by drawing a line, she's just an angel. She's so
Yep.
sweet, but I
Yep.
have to draw that line.
Yep.
So, where would you like to start when it comes to kids? Help these mamas out.
Wow, there I could spend hours on this, but let me tell you this. I think one of the big things, and this is the key, is that you need to realize that in parenting, it's always about a relationship. So your relationship with your granddaughter is such that she knew that when you drew the line that grandma means it. She
Mhm.
has a relationship with you. She can understand that that's a line I'm not going to cross. And so parenting is the same thing. It's about a relationship. And the thing is, when our kids are really little, up until about, say, 8 or 9, most of our relationship is about feeding them, clothing them, making sure they're ready for activities, they've got their homework. So it's a managerial kind of relationship. And they respond with love and we give them love. Yes, that's a back and forth, but the biggest role we play in their life is this managerial role. And then as they get to that preteen and teenage, it's more about having a relationship, a back and forth, a sharing of our lives together. And your preteens and teens are now looking for those kind of relationships in their peers. But as a parent, it's sometimes hard to transition from being that managerial parent to being a person in relationship with another young, um, soon to be adult. And we have to do that transition and we have to start looking at the ways that we're interacting with our kids so that we are building all those good tools of relationship with them and the ability to share our fun times together, the ability to laugh together, the ability to work side by side together, the ability to comfort one another, the ability to have empathy for one another.
Mhm.
Sometimes we lose our opportunity to have those kind of interactions with our kids because we're stuck in this managerial thing. Do you have all your homework done? Do you have everything you need? Why are you wearing that? When are you going to go to work? When are you going to get off the video games? We get stuck in this managerial relationship and we don't let our kids into uh, growing pre-adult relationship with us, and we don't get ourselves into their life. So for instance, I was visiting with my grandkids one time, and I asked my then 11-year-old grandson, I said, will you play the video game with me? Will you teach me how to play it? And you should have seen the look in his eyes. He didn't get it. Why does grandma want to play this video game? Because I want to be a part of your life. I want to understand the fun you have in it. And he was surprised at my willingness to learn, and so a little surprised at my skill, although it wasn't great. I did do okay. But that's just an example of how we need to get ourselves open to being a part of their lives.
Lisa, that makes me think of I had read something and it was talking about how many times teenagers get the don't do this, don't do that. And that would go for for kids too. Don't do this, don't do it. It's like don't. And there's a thing it's called deposits and withdrawals.
Mm-hmm.
And whenever you stop and look at that, is every time you're having to get after your kid and say, no, no, no,
Yep.
don't, then it's like you're withdrawing. Yeah, I know it's your job,
Mm-hmm.
but it's like you're withdrawing from that relationship.
Yeah.
And it takes two positives to overcome every negative.
Right.
And so parents literally fall into a place where they're at a real negative and their kids are like, I hate my parents or
Yep.
whatever. And it doesn't have to be there that way if you can learn to deposit.
Right.
And what would deposits be? I bet you could think, what would be some deposits into your
Well,
kids?
that's an awesome segue, because one of the first things that we present to parents is, if you're feeling like your relationship is not, it is that relationship of all withdrawals, how do you turn things around? And we have 3 easy steps for turning things around, and all 3 of them are ways to make deposits. And if you're talking about the bank of your relationship, here's ways to make deposits. And here's the 3 ways. The first one is, do you light up when they come into the room or when they come home? Do you show with your body and with your words how happy you are that they are there? And it can be as simple as, oh, so glad you're home, and a smile. That it can be that simple. It can be just, hey, good to see you. Eyes light up, smile on your face, but is there recognition that you value their presence? Or is it when they walk into the room or when they come home from school that you say, oh, don't track in the mud,
Mm.
or kick your shoes off. No, your shoes don't belong there. Put them on the shelf. What is it that's that first interaction? Okay, so that's step 1, light up when they come into the room. The second step is to be a better and a different listener. We talk way more than we listen to our kids. And so one of the things is, God gave you 2 ears and 1 mouth. You're supposed to listen twice as often as you talk, right? But when we listen to our kids, sometimes what we say afterwards isn't what they need to hear. So let's say you've got a teenager and they've come in and they're just complaining about all their homework and blah, blah, blah. And right away, as a mom especially, we try to solve that problem. And we say, well, if you did this first and that, and then we start to give them our solution. And that's not what they wanted to hear. So they're obviously going to shut down. What they might have wanted to hear instead was, oh man, that really sounds like it's going to be tough. Do you have a plan for attacking that? With that kind of reaction, we've done a couple of things. We've empathized with them, and we have given them the power to solve the problem. And empowering our kids to solve problems is key. We need to raise kids who can be problem solvers. And if we jump in with solutions all the time, we're not going to raise problem solvers. Another thing to respond is, when they come in and maybe complain about something or share something deep, is to say things like, would you like some advice on that? Or did you just want to share that with me? Instead of right away offering advice, ask them if that's what they're looking for, and ask them if they just wanted to share.
Okay,
Okay,
so I'm going to
light
take
up.
that into that goes for marriage too. Light
Absolutely.
up when he comes home,
Yes.
listen to what he
Yes.
has, and that last one, empathize.
Oh, that's not the last one. Number
Oh,
3, this is a
oh,
biggie,
how did I
especially
put
for
those together?
teens. The empathize was with listening. So listen and respond by empathy. But the third one is physical touch.
Mm.
We are all about physical touch with our kids, and then they get to those preteen years and those teen years, and we tend to be more hands off. And yet they need it. So, what's appropriate ways to give physical touch to a teenager? A pat on the back, a side hug, heck, a high five, um, uh, just rub their hair or sit next to them on the couch. They need physical touch. And again, this works in a marriage. You want to rekindle things with your spouse? Do these three things: light up, listen and respond better, and increase the physical touch. Even if it's just a little hug or a peck on the cheek, do it for your teens, do it for your spouse. And this is the way to start the ball rolling towards a better relationship.
I love those. Now, I'm going to interject communication styles, and that some people don't like to be touched so much. And so
Yes,
they don't
yes,
touch either so
right,
much.
right.
Some people are talkers and some people
Mm-hmm,
are listeners. And then we have to be
mm-hmm,
aware that if we're a talker, we need to stop and listen. And if we're
exactly.
a listener, sometimes those people who listen and they don't talk that much, you never know what they're thinking, what's
Mm-hmm,
important to them. And so
right.
if it was a teenager, they're not telling you what's important. How
Mm-hmm.
do you get that out of them? What's important? And there again, everything we're talking about today translates into marriage also. So, how do
Yes.
you get that teenager to talk?
Okay, another great question. Another strategy that we teach parents is a thing called one-on-one time. And different families call it different things. Some would call it mommy-daughter time or daddy-daughter time, but it's a regularly occurring short period of time where your child, one child only, so if you have a lot of kids, this could take a lot of time, but you have time with just them, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and you give them your undivided attention. There is no phone, there's no spouse, there's no other kids bothering you. And the magical thing about this is when you make it routine and you make it have a beginning and an end. Because what happens is over time, your child begins to see that time as precious and as a scaffolding for your relationship. So I've had parents who will do it just by hopping into their teen's bedroom at night and say, you know what, we're going to have a little daddy daughter time. I'm going to sit here for 10 minutes. I'll do whatever you want to do. If you don't want to talk to me, that's fine, but I'm going to be here for 10 minutes. And over the course of a few times, pretty soon that teen starts to open up. I worked with one mom, and in order to make it happen, she was inviting her daughter to take a walk with the dog with her. And after a few weeks of, after about a week of asking her daughter to go on the walk, she was very frustrated. She said to me, "It's just not going to work." And I said, "Don't give up. Just keep trying." 2 weeks later, she texted me. She said yes. And her daughter went on this walk with her. And it started the ball rolling in them having this time where they're together and it's important time for them to share what's going on. And that sharing doesn't happen right away, but you've got to build it. I compare it to this in a marriage relationship. So my husband and I raised 5 kids, and when they were little, our kids all knew that right after dinner, mom and dad pushed their chairs away from the table a little bit, and that indicated dinner was over, but that also indicated that this was mom and dad time. And they knew
Mm.
the two of us were going to sit there, drink our coffee, and have a chat. They could kind of bop in, but they knew this was precious time for us. And it really was. It was a time when we just reconnected. It wasn't long, but it was a ritual that we had. And I think, again, that built our relationship and strengthened it.
Well, and like you were talking, going sitting on the bed with your child,
Mhm,
or taking that walk with your child,
mhm.
or sitting down with them even when they come in from school for
Yep,
5 minutes.
yep.
And it's that full focus thing. I know whenever I go to
Yes.
lunch with a bunch of girlfriends who are all just as talkative as I am, I cannot hardly get a word in. And I'm like, oh, I'd rather just go to lunch with one
Yep,
friend because all
yep.
my friends are talkative. And on the other hand, I've learned when I'm with friends who aren't talkative, because now I know more than I used to, I
Mhm.
know to ask them questions to get them talking. And I think that
Yes,
same thing works with a teenager who doesn't
yes,
talk. They want to know that you really care.
yes.
What is it? Everybody wants to be heard. Oh, now can I remember almost three things? Heard, one's appreciated,
Mhm.
um, Oh, I'm forgetting the other
I
one.
know what you're thinking of too, and I can't remember the three of them.
It's on the back of a notebook somewhere.
Seen and heard and appreciated.
Yep,
Yeah.
seen, heard, and appreciated. And when people are quieter, and that might be teens or it might be your spouse, when they're, or it might be you, whenever they want to be heard, they want you to listen, they want you to, it shows them that they're important to you.
Exactly.
And sometimes we're so busy with all the different things, the text, the phone calls. When I'm sitting here at my computer working, I have three different browsers. I didn't even know what that was so many years ago. And then
Yep.
I've got each one open with so many things, and I go
Yep.
popping from here to there to there. And
Hmm.
life is like that sometimes, where
Right.
we're popping around and we're so busy, and then we're
Yep.
running behind,
Yep.
and there's no on purpose. There's
Right.
no, yeah.
Well, this really brings us kind of full circle to your story about the guy trying to saw down the tree. Because as you were telling that story, my thoughts went to that's exactly what happens with parenting, is that we get this child and we start parenting and we keep thinking, well, this is going to change as they get older. This is going to change as they get older. And we don't take time to sharpen our skills like that guy needed to sharpen his saw. And
Hmm.
we just think that a child's going to outgrow this or will endure it until, and especially with teens, it's like, well, they're only going to live here another year or two. I can guts my way through this. I can keep sawing, right? But if you take time to stop and be intentional about what it is you're doing, intentionally parenting, setting some goals, setting some vision for where you want your family to be, my feeling is you will have a family that you dreamed of. For instance, do you want a family where when your kids are 30 years old and they've just had a new baby, they want you to come see them? They want you to visit? They want to share their life with you? I think all parents want that. They want to develop relationships that are going to last throughout adulthood so that they can have that wonderful family. But if you think that just gutsing your way through the teen years is going to get you there, you're wrong. You need to be intentional. You need to sharpen your saw.
Lisa, it makes me think of a very, very important fact. We have in our society today, and I'm not going to go into some of this stuff, but in our society today, there are so many questionables. There are no standards. It's like what is right is wrong, and what is wrong is suddenly right. But one of the things that works all the time is respect.
Mhm.
And whenever spouses have respect for one another, like don't throw each other under the bus whenever one
Right.
spouse does something that maybe was not quite like you would do it, don't throw them under the bus. But at the same time, it is respecting our kids. And I think that when we treat our kids with respect
Mhm.
also, then they respect us back. And in this world today, people are so disrespectful. And so, how do we expect to get married and know that we're supposed to respect each other and
Right.
listen to each other? And then that's poured right down to the kids. Mom and dad aren't respecting each other.
Mhm.
And now the kids don't respect you either. Respect is a big, 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 big thing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's one of the things that kids can learn in having that one-on-one time with their parent is that, like you said, one of the takeaways is that the parent must value the child in order to be doing that, but then they also can show them how much they respect their opinion. Because in that time you're listening and you're really listening with respect and talking to them as a young adult. Yeah.
And we don't know it as parents, but my parents were wonderful. I had great parents. We learned to appreciate the fact if we had great parents.
Right, right.
But one thing my parents did do to me, because yes, I'm talkative and I always have an opinion. And so I remember being in the car and we would be driving along. Actually, we did a lot of long trips because I'm from North Carolina, and my dad was moved to California. And every summer we would travel from
Oh,
California to
wow.
North Carolina to see our relatives.
Yeah.
So I would be in the back seat for a very long
Yes.
time. And I remember my parents would be talking, and, I'd start to interject my opinion on something. And, this is another thing as parents, they didn't know. They just wanted me to be quiet and mind my own business. But hearing that so many times of, hey, no one asked your opinion.
Yeah.
It took me a while to get past that fact of when I should speak up because my opinion did matter. It took me a little while to gain
Mhm.
confidence on that. What are some things that you think help your kid gain confidence?
I really think that kids gain confidence when they know that they are cared for and loved, especially at home. And so, as much as we can as parents, affirm things that are actually accurate and authentic. We
True.
got we got into this habit, 10, 20 years ago, of overdoing praise and
Yes.
praising kids for everything. No winners, everybody gets a trophy kind of thing. We need to give kids authentic praise and help them to recognize their strengths and help them to be confident in their strengths and really, really build them up. And we can do that by having these more genuine conversations with kids and really recognizing what it is in their lives that they're good at and encouraging their strengths. That's one of the things that if I'm critical of my parents, it would be that I don't feel like they helped me to identify my strengths and really embrace the things that I was good at and move into adulthood knowing that.
And there again, we're all practicing as parents. And so we don't
Right.
know that stuff then.
Right. Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
as people are listening to this today, it's important to go, okay, I need to do that. Maybe like start a little scratch pad where you're writing down,
Yep.
I could do this and that and that. But really, the truth is that you can only do one thing at a time. You
Yep.
can't do many
Small
things, and
steps.
we fail whenever we try to do too many things at once. But when we just try to focus on one thing and thinking about what's the most important
Mhm.
thing that's going to build that relationship
Right.
with my spouse, with my kids, what's the most important thing?
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
Well, you know what? I know that you have today, I think it is called Three Easy Ways to Reach Your Teen. And that's a free
Exactly.
giveaway that you have. So
Yes.
tell us where we could get that. And I'll have it in the show notes.
Wonderful. So that is at championyourparenting.com/reach. And you'll get the download, and it will give you all kinds of ways to start reaching your teen more easily and getting to start the ball rolling on having a better relationship with your teens. Because if you feel at all like your teen and yourself are at odds and you're not at the best place, then it's time to take action because you really can have a better relationship. You don't have to just guts it out for the last few years of their life under your roof. You want that relationship to be something that they can see as a foundation for going forward to a healthier relationship. And at Champion Your Parenting, that's what we're all about, is helping parents to get the skills they need to be really confident in their parenting so that their relationships with their kids are strong and healthy and long lasting.
Sharpening their saw.
Exactly, exactly.
Well, I decided I would do the same kind of thing. And like I said, this will be in the show notes, and it's theextraordinarymarriage.com/podcast. You're going to be able to find those show notes for this episode. And I have a little mini program, and it's called Help I Have a Teen. And it talks about the personality
Awesome.
styles a bit and some
Yeah,
of the things you can do to work better with your teenager. And you're only going to find that inside the podcast notes for this episode.
excellent, excellent. That'll
Yeah.
be great. So, listeners to this podcast will have plenty of good resources for fixing their relationships with their teens.
There we go. And I don't know about you, but in the past years, I started at this age, we're talking about, practicing and being unaware through the early years and learning. But as I learned more and more, it's like it just builds that positive energy. I can be more
Yep,
proactive instead of
yep.
being reactive because I know more.
Hmm.
Um, and I know that's where you're at also. Thank
Yeah.
you, Lisa, for help,
Thanks for
for
having
talking with
me.
me today. And I know there's somebody going to be listening to this and they're going to be like, that is exactly what I need.
Excellent. And I am so pleased that you invited me on. I feel like we have a similar passion and just are both working towards better families and better marriages.
Absolutely. Thank you, Lisa.
You're welcome.